There is an art to killing, and it was practiced long before the most famous predators of the Mesozoic era ever walked the earth. By the mid-Jurassic, the dinosaur family tree had already diversified into dozens of distinct lineages, and the theropod branch, the bipedal carnivores, had split into multiple groups, each refining its approach to predation in different directions. Some were fast and small. Some were ambush predators. Some were beginning to develop group hunting behaviors that would give them access to prey far larger than themselves. And all of them were instruments of a relentless evolutionary pressure that shaped everything around them. Long before Tyrannosaurus rex dominated the late Cretaceous. Long before Velociraptor. There was a world of extraordinary predators that never quite made it to popular consciousness, animals whose hunting strategies were, in some cases, more sophisticated and more dangerous than the famous names that would follow millions of years later. Let us begin with Ceratosaurus nasicornis. A creature of the late Jurassic, Ceratosaurus was roughly 6 meters long, not enormous by the standards of what would eventually evolve, but large enough to be formidable against almost anything it chose to pursue. What distinguished it, at least visually, was the horn on its snout, a bony protrusion that sat above the nasal bones, paired with smaller ridges above the eyes and a row of small osteoderms running along its back, a feature unique among large theropods. The function of the horn has been debated at length: display, combat with rivals, or some role in predation we do not fully understand. The answer is probably all three at different moments in the animal's life. What is clearer is how Ceratosaurus hunted. Its tail was unusually flexible, more so than contemporaries like Allosaurus, giving it an enhanced ability to make rapid lateral adjustments in direction mid-stride. This, combined with a relatively slender build and long hind limbs, suggests an animal that pursued prey through environments where straight-line speed was less valuable than the ability to turn suddenly. Dense riparian vegetation, river margins, areas where prey might attempt to change direction abruptly, these seem to have been Ceratosaurus territory. Isotopic analysis of its bones suggests it fed in or near aquatic environments with some regularity, possibly targeting large fish and the semi-aquatic creatures that gathered at Jurassic water sources. Imagine a Jurassic riverbank at dusk. The water runs copper in the dying light, and along its edge, a herd of Camptosaurus, medium-sized ornithopods built for speed over open ground, has come down to drink. Their attention is on the water, heads lowered, ears and eyes scanning only the margins of the group for immediate threats. Ceratosaurus is watching from upriver, half concealed in a stand of cycads, its body angled slightly downwind of the herd. It is not moving. The waiting itself is a strategy, letting the herd settle, letting the alertness of the outermost animals soften with the false comfort of quiet minutes. Then it moves, a burst of acceleration through the shallows, using the sound of the water to mask the first few critical strides, turning hard when the herd scatters in the wrong direction, cutting off a juvenile that makes the mistake of running toward the river rather than away from it. The hunt takes perhaps 30 seconds from first movement to kill. Not far away, sharing the same Morrison Formation landscape, Allosaurus fragilis occupied a different predatory role entirely. Where Ceratosaurus was lithe and flexible, Allosaurus was a study in powerful, directed force, a robust skull with a distinctive weak point hinge that allowed it to open its mouth to an enormous gape, massive leg muscles, arms with large three-fingered hands bearing recurved claws. Evidence from sauropod bones shows distinctive parallel gashes consistent with Allosaurus tooth marks, concentrated on the flanks and hindquarters of animals many times the predator's own body mass. There is also Torvosaurus guernii to consider, potentially one of the largest theropods of the entire Jurassic, reaching perhaps 11 meters in length. Found in both North America and Portugal, it was already at the upper boundary of what the Jurassic Predator Guild could produce. Its teeth were large and robust, its forelimbs powerful, its body massive in a way that suggests it targeted the largest available prey without particular concern for elegance. At the opposite end of the size scale, Ornitholestes hermanni, a small, agile coelurosaur of the Morrison Formation, was probably no more than 2 meters long and weighed little more than 12 kilograms. Too small to threaten any significant herbivore directly, it occupied the role of pursuit predator of smaller animals, the lizards, small proto-mammals, and hatchling dinosaurs that moved through the undergrowth below the sight lines of the giants. On the other side of the Tethys Sea, in what would become East Africa, Dilophosaurus bambergii added another variation to the theropod theme, a slender, long-legged abelisauroid whose proportions suggest exceptional running speed, perhaps used in pursuit of the smaller ornithopods that shared its habitat. In China, Guanlong Wakei, a crested, feathered theropod bearing a spectacular pneumatic crest on its skull, was already refining the body plan that would, millions of years hence, produce the most famous predator in paleontological history. Guanlong was an early tyrannosaur, and looking at it alongside Tyrannosaurus rex is to see how dramatically that lineage would transform itself, from a feathered, medium-sized predator with long arms to the bone-crushing apex predator of the Cretaceous. In the Jurassic, the ancestors of T. rex were not kings. They were mid-sized hunters, occupying a secondary position in ecosystems dominated by Allosauroids and Ceratosaurs. Perhaps the most striking predator in terms of its behavioral implications was Dilophosaurus weatherilli, the two-crested predator from Arizona. Its teeth were sharp and lightly built, perfectly suited for repeatedly seizing and releasing struggling prey, wearing it down through sustained attack rather than a single killing bite. The distinctive paired crests on its skull were almost certainly display structures, meaning this was also an animal engaged in complex social signaling, territories and hierarchies negotiated through appearance as much as through violence. Anchiornis huxleyi, known from extraordinary specimens from the late Jurassic of China, was a feathered dinosaur roughly the size of a pigeon, covered in a detailed mosaic of black and white plumage with a russet-colored crown. It was not yet a bird in the strict sense, but astonishingly close. Anchiornis could likely glide, possibly fly short distances, and its detailed feather impressions tell us what early feathered dinosaurs actually looked like, not scaly, reptilian creatures, but vividly colored, aerodynamically sophisticated animals with plumage as complex as any modern bird. Sinraptor dongi, a large theropod from the middle to late Jurassic of China, shows healed bite wounds almost certainly inflicted by another sinraptor, evidence of aggressive intraspecific conflict, two large predators fighting over territory or a carcass. In the marks left by those wounds, preserved in bone that healed and hardened over 160 million years, we can read something of the inner life of these animals, the competition, the conflict, the social complexity that even apex predators must navigate. In England, the bones of Megalosaurus bucklandii, the very first dinosaur ever formally described by science, in 1824, tell the beginning of a different story, not the story of the animals themselves, but of the humans who would eventually find them, piece them together from fragments of stone, and begin the long work of understanding what this world once was. The Jurassic Predator Guild was not a simple ladder with one animal at the top. It was a web, many animals of different sizes pursuing different prey using different strategies, each one shaping the behavior of the next through the relentless reciprocal pressure of predator and prey. The prey was evolving. And in evolving, it was becoming something the world had never seen.